that the Irish government has decided to get into alliance with some of the most reactionary people in Britain, including the House of Lords, to thwart democracy. Now, it was only 100 years ago when the House of Lords was trying to thwart Irish democracy. So now we're working together. And then, I don't want to keep rabbiting on, but if you look at the situation, there is, again, a tendency in government to try and play down anything that doesn't reflect well in the European Union. And it took me a long time when I was writing my column at the Sunday Business Post to actually find out, what do we pay Europe? What's the financial arrangements? And I asked several times, and I got answers which were impenetrable. And I know that as a civil servant, that means you're not answering the question. But eventually, through FOI, through the Freedom of Information Act, and through some of the other journalists, we managed to find out that this year, Ireland will probably pay much more than we thought. The net contribution will be close to €1 billion. We're going to get more than €1 billion out than we're getting in. The figures will work out. Our contribution this year is going to be about 2.7 billion, and what we're going to get is 1.7 billion back. So I love people. I love people talking about Brussels and RFS and things like that. And you know, we're still paying massively for the bailout. So there's a huge burden on Ireland. Back. But to be quite honest, given the fact that we are a net contributor, that gives us a little more freedom than we would have had before. And of course, there's the effect on our fishing and our industry that Brexit is going to have. Now again, because I've worked in government, I tend to go to the government for figures. I tried to find out what was the percentage of fish taken in Irish waters by Irish boats, and the answers were completely, again, incomprehensible. And then the British, I asked them, and they said, oh yeah, it's somewhere between 25 and 30%. They could give it to me in a 5-minute phone call, which is more than 10% below what the British are complaining about. But after Brexit and the exclusion of foreign boats from British waters, there's only one other place they can come, and that's us. And the fact that if you look at our fishing industry, the fishing catches have been going down all the time. So even what we're talking about is only a fraction of what a proper area would actually give. And remember, 90% of our territorial economic zone is maritime. So the sea should be much more important to us than other areas. But it's an area, again, where we have given far too much away to Britain. Now, Ray Kinsella spoke about, never place your faith in princes, because we saw that during the bailout talks. John Major has written an autobiography. Whenever you think about John Major, he has some very good things to write about the European Council. And he said the humiliation of some of the small countries is incredible at the European Council. He said this was during Jacques Delors' time, and Jacques Delors was such a powerful figure that if he set on anybody, he would, they didn't want to take his wrath. But he said what was particularly cruel and hard to watch was when one small country was being kicked around with the Commission, all the other small countries came behind the Commission as a way of ingratiating themselves in it. He said he would love to have got it on TV. And as the Greek Foreign Minister described Ireland as the model prisoner. And the one thing I want to talk, because I'm slightly obsessive on it, because it's the border. My family is a north-south family of grandchildren in Belfast, son in Belfast, family in Tyrone, family in Derry. So the border is a big issue for me, to be quite honest. And again, I thought the Irish government went on the wrong track here. Because however much, and I would love to see my country united, the bailout, the backstop is inoperable. It can't be delivered. There's no, and sometimes I think people don't listen or read on TV. There was a bill that passed through the House of Commons. It was the Customs Bill. And one of the clauses, one of the amendments was that it outlawed any different customs arrangements between Northern Ireland and Great Britain. Anything. It didn't even have one person opposing it. Now, it didn't even get enough for a division. And yet, the Irish government are pushing ahead. The other thing I'd say is that under the Good Friday Agreement, we said that we would give parity of esteem to other communities in the north. And when we were negotiating that, we meant it. So I'm thoroughly against a border on the island of Ireland, but I don't want to impose a border in the Irish Sea either to people who would feel threatened by that. Because in the end, we need reconciliation, and we're not getting reconciliation by attacking and sort of saying we want to put people off. And there's just no way that the British government are going to agree to a border in the Irish Sea. In 1924, and I read a lot of the state papers, the Irish government under William Cosgrave decided to introduce a customs border in Ireland. And the whole argument was, this will scare the British into having a border in the Irish Sea. It didn't work then, and it's not going to work now. And it's exactly the same arguments. And it's eerie reading the same discussions in it. No matter how much, we long to see, our country coming together. We are huge beneficiaries of our bilateral relations with the British. There are over 500,000 Irish-born people on the island of Britain. And you know what the nearest other EU country has? 17,000 in Spain. 1/35 of the number of people living in the island of Britain. There are more people in Toronto than there are in France and Germany put together. That shows you the whole cultural orientation of the Irish people. The next time a crisis comes in Ireland, and crisis will come, if we have managed to mess up the common travel area, people without a job are not going to fly off to Munich or Hamburg. Maybe a few of the kind of top graduates might, but the average person is going to be looking for a job in Britain, Australia, Canada, the United States. We have to, our policy's got to reflect that. And one thing we can't do is we can't destroy the common travel area. I've spoken in Westminster in a few places, and the amount of antagonism that's building up against Ireland is wrong, because even if the Taoiseach was misquoted about closing the airspace to British airplanes, it was pure madness. Who would be the major beneficiary, or the major sufferer, if British airspace was closed? We couldn't even go to the continent. You get the impression there's a certain infantile element in there who's not thinking things through. And of course, we export. People say we export only 15% of our goods to Britain, which is true. That's 15% by value, 30% by volume. But over 90% of all the goods leaving Ireland to go abroad travels through Britain. It goes through, an awful lot of it goes through on the lorries over the land bridge. And again, whereas we may get a deal, and I hope we will get a deal to go through there, why would you endanger that? Why would you be so antagonistic to the country that you need to do a deal with in the end? And it just doesn't... Listen, I won't keep rabbiting on. I know I've gone far too long as it is. Herman's throwing glances at me there. But I just want to say that I welcome the creation of this party. I remember when the Labour Party was Eurosceptic. I remember when Sinn Féin were Eurosceptic. So there's probably a place on it there. But I think the future will depend, certainly in the immediate term, I think the future will depend on how the Brexit negotiations come out. If, as I fear, we're not going to do particularly well out of this and we will be screwed by the European Union in the end, then obviously that would be a major blow for people who are pro-European. But I think overall, as Ray Kinsella said, Europe is changing and the people are falling out of love with Europe. You just look at every election result, except the French, which was a particular choice between Marine Le Pen and Macron, and in that case, people rallied to Macron rather than Marine Le Pen. But everywhere people are voting against it. The fact that we've kind of wrapped Brexit up in an orange-green kind of argument has probably postponed that a little in Ireland. But I think the scales will fall off, as has fallen off everywhere, as the nature of this European Union and its desire to create a super-state and to project its power abroad. You would imagine after what the mess-up that was done in Libya, that the Europeans would not be keen on projecting abroad. President Obama said the biggest mistake of his foreign policy was to listen to the Europeans about Libya, and he said he'd never do it again. So why are these countries so anxious to start going around the world and injecting military power and destroying societies? And I think it's totally